PsychoSocialism, where today I'm diving deep into the pseudoscience in the dark corners of the internet, because knowledge is power, and people should have more of it. If you're addicted to watching YouTube, like I am, your recommended feed might have been chock full of videos about Sigma males. And if you have, you likely had one of three responses. 1. What? Sigma males? What the hell is this? Is it a club? Can I hunt them? 2. Oh, for fuck's sake. Is this more of that alpha-beta shit my gym friends keep going on about? Ugh, why is Keanu Reeves in the thumbnail? Ugh. 3. Oh wow, I knew there had to be more than just alphas and betas. Let's watch this. I need to know what this means. Am I a Sigma male? Was I a Sigma male all this time? The Sigma male's sudden surge in popularity, and the amount of clicks it has generated, is possibly the biggest event to happen in red pill philosophy for quite some time. For years, the internet's so-called socio-sexual hierarchy has been pretty much stable in its terms of popular language and discourse online in particular. This has been despite the fact that the entire thing is largely pseudoscientific bullshit, based on a study of wolves rather than people, and that the wolves were studied in captivity rather than in the wild, and that the original author has essentially disowned it as bad research, and that it largely serves just to give people a rationalization for acting like a twat. But you see, I'm not being an asshole. I'm being alpha. Women flock to me, and if they don't, they're just whores who want a beta cuckboy to pay their bills instead of a strong, masculine man. Brave New World? What? Never heard of it. To people who are fans of psychology, the rise of mediocre pseudoscience on the internet is incredibly frustrating, but not entirely unexpected, when you look at it historically. The human brain is a machine of efficiency. It likes to keep things simple, and thus looks for simple and easy ways to explain complicated things. It's why your brain actually loses neurons as you get older. It's synaptic pruning, getting rid of the stuff you don't use. Social interactions are, for a lot of people, especially under the age of 25, very complicated, very confusing, and very dependent on personal experience. For example, if a friend tells you that all women are hypergamous, or gold-digging, but you have a long history of female friends and relationships that disprove that, you're more likely to reject his hypothesis and tell him to shut up because he sounds like a divorced 40-something crying into a pint of bitter on Christmas Eve. If you have experiences that seem to confirm this statement, or if you have no experiences at all, you might find yourself agreeing or internalizing this emotionally, and then you start to see it everywhere. You are primed to see it, and so you form a bias. This is how the alpha-beta typology, or red pill philosophy, appeals to young men who have no experience, or older men with bad experiences, by giving them a short, simple explanation of complex social interactions. This has been covered more thoroughly by creators elsewhere, but in short, alphas, or chads, are the top 20% or so of males in terms of looks and confidence. Women are drawn to them sexually and cannot resist their innate charms. They get all the sex and are socially successful wherever they go. Betas, or deltas, are average guys with steady jobs who may find relationships, but because women are like that, the relationship will always be based on his income, and women will merely put up with him until a rich alpha comes along to take his place. The lowest tiers are the omegas and gammas, and these are men who are so ugly that women reject even taking their money. They remain alone forever in divergence and solitude and despair because they're that disgusting to women and there's nothing they can do about it. Gammas, in particular, are often painted as smug intellectuals.
The chief characteristic of the gamma is his dishonesty.
That month, I didn't sleep for 25 days. I didn't sleep at all. I didn't sleep at all for 25 days.
The gamma is dishonest with himself. The gamma is dishonest with others. And even worse, when he is called out for his dishonesty, he will usually defend himself like a cornered rat.
How is that possible?
I'll tell you how it's possible. You lay in bed, frozen in something approximating terror for 8 hours, and then you get up.
Rather than simply admit that he was being dishonest.
Like rats, quote unquote. Which I'm sure has nothing to do with the Nazi-adjacent weirdo who invented it. And that's it. That's how an entire corner of the internet thinks the world works. It's an exercise in speculation, an intellectual dead end, that prevents and actively discourages further thought, and frankly, discourages considering women as having any agency or complexity of their own, to the point where some smaller corners actively advocate sexual assault, rather than think too hard about the complexities of social engagement. So if the alpha-beta typology has its appeal in simplicity, why have sigma males suddenly been added to complicate things? Well, it was created and inserted, no pun intended, to solve a common problem with typologies themselves. A typology is defined as a classification according to general type, especially in archaeology, psychology, or the social sciences. Typologies were very common in early psychology, the two enduring examples being Adler's birth order typologies and the Jungian Myers-Briggs test, hilariously described by Adam Grant in Psychology Today as the fad that refuses to die. It is an attempt to predict what a person will do by measuring who they are and giving them a type. Modern psychologists dislike typologies as a rule, especially when applied to the study of personality and used to categorize individuals. In this regard, they have largely been supplanted by the trait levels ranked independently on a continuous scale, Ocean being the prime example. Why? Simply put, people don't fit into neat little boxes, and fitting them into neat little boxes often requires you to chainsaw all their limbs off. Or to put it in a rather less metaphorically stupid way, the creator of typology often finds themselves distorting a person's actions, or ignoring them entirely, or inferring some kind of motivation just to keep the typology intact. As psychology evolved into a modern scientific field over the course of the 20th century, researchers found it more important to seek out empirical data groups first and build a cohesive theory around that. This has proven largely more effective and enduring than simply getting drunk with your mates and classifying people based on intuition and the hallucinations that you see in the opium den. Typologies are rigid and prescribe actions and attitudes to broad categories of people, categories which usually don't hold up to empirical study, like, at all. They fail to account for large chunks of individual behaviour, which is a problem for people whose job is to try and understand individual behaviour. The alpha-beta-gamma typology has all of these problems. The categories are too broad, don't account for the vast variety of human behaviour, and have no empirical backing whatsoever. That hasn't stopped a lot of people from believing it so far, though, right? So why has the sigma male suddenly been introduced? It's tough to track the origins of memes like this, but I have a theory. The people who follow and believe this typology are largely young men who find socialising offline difficult, and who identify as being rejected, ignored, or unsuccessful socially, especially with women. Betas, in their own terms, who aspire to be alphas. The problem is, alphas are socially successful, confident, and wade through valleys of pussy every Saturday night. They don't sit at home and go on obscure forums, post about a crush at school ignoring them, and dating an asshole who probably kills puppies because, trust me guys, he totes look like he does, like for real. Thus the movement is self-defeating. If you somehow become an alpha, you no longer need to belong to the movement. I mean, where would you find the time in all that puss? The thinkers of the movement needed to come up with something else that betas could aspire to be. A new type for the list, one that was confident but not social, something to fill the obvious holes in the theory, that were cast light on by the very community who believes in it. Thus is born the sigma male. The red pill philosophy has always sold itself as a form of self-help, and that's where the name comes from. Take the pill and know the truth. Free your mind. There is no women. I mean spoons. I mean whatever. The problem with it being a self-help movement is that unlike The Secret, with its cosmic orders, or Scientology, with its chance to be selected as Tom Cruise's next bride, there is no end goal to taking the red pill. You've already taken it by joining a subreddit and posting about how women are all slags. Where do you go from there, right? Isn't that the top of the mountain? But wait, you're still a beta, or worse, a gamma. You're still not happy. You could try and become an alpha yourself, but according to the red pill, the only way to do that is to be born with a certain skull shape or become a pickup artist, which even its most ardent proponents, such as Bruce V, admit doesn't work 99% of the time. Plus that would mean going outside and talking to women. Ugh. It's tough to be the quarterback when you never leave the house, so why not be an armchair quarterback instead? And just say aloud what you do and pretend like you know something they don't. The definition of a sigma male varies depending on what hacky blog post you're reading from, so to summarise a few common tropes, the sigma male is independent and adaptable, takes risks and hates being safe, values people but doesn't need them to be himself, is the master of his own fate, is a loner, is a silent leader, is a lone wolf, can't be told what to do, spends time alone with his thoughts in silence, women find him mysterious, doesn't value the tribalism of society, is morally grey, or worse. What? Is isolated from society, but it's his choice, okay? Plays the game with women, but not that one, I promise it's a totally different thing, I swear. And finally, this is my favourite one, could be an alpha, if he wanted. So on the surface, this sounds like edgy bro psych that is designed to sell books, generate clicks on articles, and make insecure men who struggle to understand society feel like they've been enlightened. But when you look up below the surface, it's actually it's actually exactly that still, all the way down. The Sigma male was created by taking the already shaky concept of the alpha male and just taking out the socializing bit to make it appeal more to the depressed, lonely people they sell products to. Being a Sigma male, unlike being an alpha, is possible without leaving the house. It feels more attainable and aspirational, and it's being sold as a lifestyle choice rather than an innate birthright concept like all the other ones are. None of these blogs with incredibly ironic names, such as The Adult Man or Hack Spirit, try to back up these assumed archetypes with anything even close to resembling data. No citations, no scientific or even cool philosophical basis, just basic bros pointing at a John Wick poster and going, "I'm this cool. Just trust me, guys." Now, the socialist in me wants to point at the profit motive of these blogs and books and YouTube things and say, aha, capitalism is the problem here. They're just duping people for money. If there was no money motive, these people wouldn't believe this. But I would respond to myself by saying it's possible to both sell falsehoods for money and believe it entirely. Of course it is. Look at conservatives. The problem with the false typology is not the motivation of people who believe it. It's about how they react when they receive new information that contradicts what they believe. What happens when the cracks begin to show? Festinger, the father of cognitive dissonance theory, argued that when faced with internal consistency, people tend to rationalize it by adding new thoughts or cognitions into the mix, trying to explain it as quickly and simply as possible to reduce the mental internal stress. If a beta male is popular and successful with women, it must be because she's after his money. If an alpha is unpopular and unsuccessful with women, it's not because they don't want him deep down. They must be looking for a beta male to exploit for cash instead. If you think of yourself as an alpha but are lonely, you must be a sigma male instead. Don't worry, it's all perfectly consistent with the previous stuff and women still find you attractive. Really, I promise, buy my book. This is the problem with typologies in general. In order to keep up the appearance of consistency, at some point there are going to be some big leaps in logic. In this case, very misogynistic leaps in logic that actively encourage people to view women as NPCs. In astrology, the star signs ascribe personality traits based on where the sun was when you were born. I'm a Scorpio, which means I'm passionate and creative and emotional and the best bang since the big one. All true, of course. But it also says I'm jealous, secretive, and resentful. And while I have been all of those things in the past, none of them really define me. In order to keep people believing in it, the typology has to keep adding things, adding cognitions, until all the cracks in it are papered over, and the people challenging the typology give up trying. But while astrology is largely harmless, for the red pill it basically means making up more and more types of male, while painting females as more and more evil and deceptive. This is where things get nasty. Part 3. Part of the reason that the terms alpha and beta have entered common parlance in the first place, rather than staying on blogs where they belong, is due to a lot of far-right commentators such as the hilarious Golden One taking it way too seriously and treating it as a mutual fact of life. It's not hard to see why. It's pseudoscience that confirms ideas they already believe. It's the same reason they latched onto phrenology to explain away their racism, or the bell curve, cultural Marxism, to explain why people want progressive change in a society in which they live. Right-wingers love their pseudoscience because it allows them to keep thinking wrong things with the confidence of theoretical knowledge and stops them having to do the work of learning or changing. Don't they, Jordan? The alpha, sigma, beta, gamma, epsilon, theta, chi, t typology is the perfect model for the right wing to explain why some people are successful with the opposite sex and some aren't. Divide people into simple high school archetypes and blame women. Job done. Socializing explained. You'll notice, of course, that the model has no mention of gay men, lesbians, trans people, or asexual people, because right-wingers don't care about these people. They are limbs to be hacked off, so that groups of people fit neatly into boxes that they can understand, without any effort. It's not a reflection of reality. It's a reflection of the people who invented it, and an invitation to insecure people searching for answers. That's what makes it effective propaganda, taking negative thoughts that young men already have and justifying them with facts and logic, to make them proud of their own ignorance rather than ashamed of it. The red pill isn't an answer, it's a mind prison, a worldview that appeals to negativity, insecurity, and strong emotions over facts. Like astrology, it provides a safe, contained set of answers that sound correct on an intuitive level, but are completely incapable of surviving the harsh light of data. But, key point, astrology doesn't have a scapegoat built into it. No one ever suggested Capricorns can never be attractive to women and should probably just go lie down and rot. Strip away the surface layers, and what you get is not just an ugly, coagulating pool of incorrect assumptions about women, but also about men too. The idea that some men are naturally and inescapably inferior to others. By this logic, it must follow that some men are superior. Ubermen, if you will. Perhaps if you can never be this Uberman, you should follow him, listen to him, do what he says. He has the solutions to your questions. It's a very, very old idea, and if a young man with not a lot going for him can be persuaded to accept a socio-sexual hierarchy, they might be primed to accept other hierarchies more readily. Okay, Psy, I get your point, but I identify with the idea of the Sigma male. It perfectly sums up how I view myself. Why not believe in it? Look, baby, there is nothing wrong about being a strong, independent man who don't need no whammon. If that's what you are, then hey, you do you, king. But marrying yourself to that idea, that label, when you see the negativity and baggage that comes with accepting the hierarchy, doesn't seem like a very Sigma move to me. It seems a little beta, to be honest. Real psychology has been moving away from using typologies for a long time, and for a good reason. Maybe instead of spending our time imagining what type of person we are, we should listen to what personality psychologists have been saying for years. There are no types. Even traits are limited in what they can explain and describe. People are stories. The stories they tell themselves about who they are. And usually, they have an unreliable narrator. You decide who tells your story, and who it's told to. You decide where it goes next. And if you want to have a bit more romance and erotica in your story, maybe put in the work for a proper build-up. No one likes a sudden romantic subplot out of nowhere. Make the main character more interesting. Take time to understand the love interest. Give them tense scenes, spending time together. That way, when you get to the part with the sex, it feels just right. Hi there everybody, thanks for listening to another one of my daft rants about a subject that doesn't really matter. If you found that video interesting, please like, please comment, please subscribe, so I can keep making more of these. They're quite fun to make. They do take a bit of time though. This one took a lot longer than I thought it was going to. If you didn't like it, or you don't agree, you can call me a cuck in the comments, okay? If you have a topic you'd like me to cover in future, or that you want to know more about, please leave a comment below. I will read it, and it will go into the big ideas list for videos that I'll do later. I think my next one is going to be probably guilt and shame, which is kind of a big topic. If you have any better ideas, I'd love to hear them, so please chime in. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.